All right, let's get started. My name is Melissa Zuro, and I'm the marketing director at WhereScape. Welcome to our webinar, Data Vault and Databricks, Automation Techniques, Best Practices and Use Cases. Today, we'll demonstrate how combining Data Vault methodology with Databricks, facilitated by WhereScape's automation tools, can transform your data warehouse strategy. You'll get insights from real-world examples and practical demo to build an agile, high-performing warehouse. I'd like to introduce our speaker. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Marshbank, Principal Consultant at the Data Vault Shop. Over 20 years of experience designing and building high-performing transactional and business intelligence solutions, he helps clients automate their data warehouse initiatives using Data Vault 2.0, a proven methodology for agile and scalable data integration. Before we get started, let's just cover some housekeeping items. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat icon. Feel free to drop in any questions. And at the end of the session, we'll have time to answer all of them. With that being said, let's dive into our session. Kevin, over to you.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate it. And an intro there that I didn't think of originally that was put in there was around the transactional systems. I actually got my start building high volume transactional systems, and I kind of migrated into data warehousing and eventually into Data Vault 2.0 and WhereScape as well. Through realizing that these transactional systems enabled a lot of functionality, but in the end, what really mattered was getting those metrics and that information to the executives to make decisions around the business and to continue to enhance and improve the business going forward. And really it comes back to making sure that data is being tracked and being able to compile that data through data warehousing into metrics and using Data Vault 2.0 as a methodology to get that data out and to the executives in a reliable manner. So anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up because that really is how I got my start, was starting in transactional systems and really migrating as I saw the value and the need for doing data warehousing. So again, we're going to be going over WhereScape, Data Vault 2.0 and Databricks, and lots of great things in between. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into what topics are going to cover. This and more. So we're going to obviously go through an overview. We need to level set. If you're new to WhereScape, what is WhereScape Data Automation? We're going to cover some of the pieces of Databricks, the medallion architecture, and Data Vault 2.0 integrated there, the Databricks Unity Catalog and Lakehouse architecture. And then also I will go through leveraging WhereScape Data Automation on Databricks. So part of that will be that automation flow. I'll walk you through some of that. We'll be talking about some of the Data Vault items and the standards there that WhereScape helps with, and those use cases, how that implements into Databricks. And then along the way, also some best practices around part of those pillars of Data Vault 2.0, which are people, process, and technology. So I'll be hitting those as we go through as well. So who is Data Vault Shop? Data Warehouse Automation Consulting Shop, the president and principal solution architect. And we have decades, more than 20 years of Data Vault experience, data warehousing. We provide with many customers with design, implementation, build out, customization, automation expertise. We help those customers get up and going and to also tweak the automation to include things that maybe they didn't have out of the box. A lot of breadth of experience, obviously, across the board from Kimball methodology, Inman, Data Vault, everything in between, a lot of variations in there. And then again, a WhereScape partner. So we help with onboarding and expertise in that area. We only work with WhereScape customers, honestly, because being former customers of WhereScape, we don't really want to build warehouses without using WhereScape as a tool, because it's we've found it to be much more efficient and saves the organizations a lot of money in the long run. So and then experience on a wide variety of data warehouse platforms, from Redshift, SQL Server, Oracle, Exadata, DB2, on, and obviously Databricks. And you can see us at datavaultshop.com. So let's cover WhereScape's data automation. So a lot of And you may have seen some of these slides before, traditional methods over the years, a lot of different tools, multiple handoff between whether you're using, have people that are using PowerPoint for modeling or Excel for putting together how they're going to be modeling and bringing data together, and then handing that off to architects and developers to start building those pipelines. And those processes are very brittle, and that cycle time is very extended, being able to have those conversations and the feedback, and also the lack of information between those handoffs, right? Between putting together Excel spreadsheets, handing that off to somebody else, and hoping there's enough information there to help them actually build those pipelines and build those structures. So WhereScape brings that all together. There is the automation of discovery of your source systems. We'll show that the profiling of those sources, modeling, and having that enterprise view of your entire warehouse. And that's really super important. I'll be touching on that several times as we go through, versus building individual pipelines, actually taking that holistic view of all your source systems and structures and integrating that. Again, we're talking about Data Vault 2.0, so really that enterprise integration methodology to bring all those sources together. That's one of the really tenets of Data Vault 2.0 is being able to integrate source systems into that business-focused design. And so WhereScape is really bringing those tools together. Once we've put that together and automated the discovery, the profiling, putting that model together, and then building all those pipelines in an integrated fashion versus doing one-off. Again, I'll give you some more visuals and talk through that some more a little bit later. And realistically, as a former customer, I can say that it actually does hit all these points: increasing developer productivity, as those standards, the scale out, trust and continuity, owning the data, also really having everybody that works within the tool have access to see all that lineage, have the same code being produced, and it really makes the entire team a lot more efficient and be able to work together a lot more efficiently. A lot of customers across the board. You can see a whole slew of them there and more, continually adding more customers to this list across the world. US, obviously North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, New Zealand, where they got their start, and everywhere in between. Okay, so the WhereScape solution. So it's primarily made up of two products, which are really becoming more and more integrated together. They are highly integrated at the moment, but they're actually even moving closer and closer in step. WhereScape 3D, which allows you to discover your source systems, profile them, really create a data catalog of all your source systems, and be able to do the designing and the planning and automate that model development at an enterprise level, and allow multiple teams to work together, merge those models and push them to your target platform, which again, today we're talking about Databricks. And that gets pushed into WhereScape Red, which is the tool that actually has all the information on building the actual structures. So your DDL, your table structures, as well as your pipelines. So your scripts, your SQL that moves that data through, it knows how to build that automatically as well. Again, we'll show that as we go through. WhereScape Data Vault Express really is a flavor of these that incorporates into WhereScape 3D and WhereScape Red all of the patterns, the standards of Data Vault 2.0, and the automation and workflow that helps build those up automatically, including your raw vault, all of your objects that need to be able to ingest that data and create those hash keys, build your hubs, satellites, and links, as well as push that into your business vault, pits and bridges, standardized views for standardizing that egress of data out of your raw vault, so it's easier for consumption into whatever your consumption layer is. Again, we're talking from kind of a medallion architecture, which we'll touch on in a moment, but really that bronze, silver, bronze being the ingestion, staging up, and then the silver of the raw vault, and then the gold layer, whichever that structure is, whether that's going to be star schemas, information marts, or some flat wide structures for ingestion by data scientists, analytics, etc. Or possibly into some AI, ML models, etc. So again, these tools, by utilizing this set of tools, you're really consolidating all those separate tools we were looking at in the previous slide into a set of WhereScape tools that give you really independence over the platforms that you choose. We've had a lot of customers that have migrated from other platforms to, like instance, migrating to Databricks. We've had customers migrate from other platforms that we support because they were using WhereScape. It was an easy process to, all that information was in metadata. They simply implemented the support pack for that new platform and migrated their entire structure over to the new platform. So it's a very quick, easy process. And when I say that, I mean within a day or two. A lot of multi-platform, as you can see here. We'll be talking about Databricks, which is the lower left over there, and continually, WhereScape continues to add new platforms as they come online. And one of the advantages of the tool, again, is that support for new platforms comes on very quickly with WhereScape. It's designed to be multi-platform and sit really above and automate the methodologies and the processes, and then push that down to whatever platform you choose. WhereScape, again, doesn't run its own ETL engine. It's writing code for whatever platform you see here. It's writing code that gets pushed down to that platform to execute. And so a lot of questions around scale that come up really comes down to whatever platform you choose. It's the scale of that platform you get to take advantage of. WhereScape just takes advantage of whatever platform you choose. So WhereScape automation, let's talk about that again. So WhereScape 3D, what is that in this process flow? So that really is that data discovery and profiling. It's going to be able to reach out to your ADLS2, your containers, your S3 buckets, and just those Parquet or Orc or whatever files you have out there, or any RDBMS platform. So I've pulled from NoSQL platforms, from DB2, Exadata, just about anything you can think of, and pull that in and discover that. Very customizable. If you have other patterns you need the tool to use, you can actually tweak the tool set. Again, as a customer, one of the reasons I purchased it is because it does everything out of the box really well. And if you need to customize it, it is an open book. It's very transparent and lets you configure it as you need. So really data cataloging your source systems, discovering them, profiling them, getting all of that information so you can in one place use that to actually start building your enterprise model. It allows you to do your physical models, your business logical models, generates your physical models for Data Vault, for Star Schema, et cetera, and then push that out. It allows you to document all the source systems, produce an HTML website you can publish. So if you have a dozen, 2 dozen more source systems, you can use this tool to discover all those, profile it, and produce HTML websites to give to your organization on all of those source systems. And then it actually allows you to produce sample data. If you need sample data for your dev environments, you can actually profile and use the profiling metrics to create more realistic sample data. And then you can run through validation of those models. And then finally, the last step is to tell it which platform you're going to go to, and it will make that model compatible to, in this case, for instance, Databricks. And then WhereScape Red, that is the builder tool, and that really gets fed from 3D. Now you can use WhereScape Red and build those pipelines individually, but really we want to talk about doing that at a much higher automation level by doing it as a entire model and pushing those models into WhereScape Red. WhereScape takes that information from 3D and actually builds all those objects and those pipelines automatically during the deployment process. And then it includes the documentation, metadata is all stored, and then also a scheduler. So Oscaban scheduler that WhereScape uses comes from LinkedIn that can run on Linux and be scaled out to as many nodes as you want with no additional licensing there. So what does that look like as far as process? If we're talking about from the process perspective in Data Vault 2.0, that really, if we look in the upper right there, that WhereScape automation lifecycle. So you can see kind of starting there in 3D at the top, discover, design it, and then push that into Red to develop and deploy that. And WhereScape Red will take care of producing your deployment packages to go downstream to your other environments, and then operate that and enhance that with 3D in red and continue that process and that flow over time. All right, so Databricks medallion architecture, let's talk about that. So medallions really meaning bronze, silver, and gold. Great time right now with the Olympics to talk through that. And very similar, if not borrowed from, Data Vault 2.0 standards in the sense that bronze really is your direct raw data from your source systems with some additional metadata, like load dates, source codes, processor run IDs, things like that. And then the silver is going to be your cleansed, merged, and conformed data, minimal transformations like data type alignment, things like that. If you read through the Data Vault 2.0 standards, you're going to see basically these kind of things mentioned as far as that process going from your ingestion and staging layer to your raw data vault. And then we go into that gold layer, which that more complex transformations, maybe your enterprise business rules, and then moving into some more soft business rules depending on where your dimensions that you're using to feed the downstream business units, and really ending up with that single source of truth data sets. So what does that look like with the WhereScape metadata abstraction on top of that? So if we look at that same, this is kind of a variation of that same diagram we looked at earlier from the WhereScape Red tool, but just overlaying what that looks like with that bronze, silver, and gold levels inside the tool set. So you have your ingestion is your bronze layer, and then that staging into your raw storage is going to be your silver layer, and where you've done that enterprise integration as well. And then in the gold layer where you've applied those additional rules and complex analytics, maybe your AI or ML processes, etc. And again, underneath that, as WhereScape builds that into Databricks, you've got your Unity catalog underneath that, Delta Lake, etc. That Databricks is going to be building in on top of your data lake catalogs. Okay. So Databricks Unity catalog. So when Databricks first came out, there was a Hive Metastore, but Unity catalog is a little bit newer, but it's definitely the recommended approach now. You want to make sure you're using Unity catalog with Databricks, and it really gives that overarching metastore across the catalog so that you can handle your security rules and your sharing. At the bottom, you can see Delta sharing, which is where you can actually share out that data to other organizations and control that from security level, as well as that Unity catalog allows you to actually audit that sharing that you're doing. So you get your system-wide metadata available in one location across those catalogs, central security policies. So that's really what that Unity catalog is doing for you in the Databricks environment. And let me also mention again, if you guys want to throw in any questions into the chat while we're going along here, feel free to do that. And we'll try to feed in answering some of those. I'll save probably most of the questions to the end, but if there's anything that pops up as we go through here, feel free to feed that into the chat as I'm going through. So at a high level, Unity catalog here, where you can see that you've got your Metastore level storage, and then you have on the right-hand side, you'll see the cloud storage, S3, ALS2, Google Cloud storage, and whichever lake platform you want to use. Basically, Databricks will store those objects that you're creating inside your schemas in those storage locations that you've configured in Databricks. And then WhereScape really is sitting at an automation level and abstraction layer above that, which again, I'll cover in a minute here. But you've got your Metastore level, then your catalog level storage, and then your schema level storage. And then you obviously are configuring where those exist within your data lake structure, and you can manage the access to those based off of the Unity catalog at the Metastore level. So, taking a different pivoted top-down view of that, what does that look like? You have a catalog, it's set to that S3 bucket there. And then down below, you've got your bronze, silver, gold, and sandbox. Again, you can have as many of those as you want. But again, what it's trying to show here is setting your various security roles based off of those particular schemas, and you're setting that at the Unity catalog level. And you can create as many of those schemas as you'd like. And WhereScape, again, abstracted above that, lets you configure as many target abstraction layers to those various schemas. And you can create as many of those schemas as you'd like. And WhereScape, again, abstracted above that, lets you configure as many target abstraction layers to those various schemas. And you can create as many target abstraction layers to those various schemas. And you can create as many of those schemas as you'd like. And WhereScape, again, abstracted above that, lets you configure as many target abstraction layers to those various schemas and catalogs. So what does that look like in practice within the WhereScape toolset when we configure these targets? So you can see here, I've set up bronze, silver, and gold medallions in my targets, and that's really an abstracted name. Here in this particular case, I've set a bronze logical name for the medallion inside the WhereScape connection into Databricks. And then I have a catalog called demo. And then within that catalog, I have a bronze schema. Now, the schema doesn't have to match the medallion name. Maybe you are setting up your schemas with different names, and WhereScape allows you to abstract above that and set your medallion names, and then set which schemas those actually are. So that might be a dev underscore bronze, or a dev and a dev underscore silver, or something else like that. WhereScape lets you name those whatever you want and still keep that logical medallion name within the tool set, as well as the coloring. So obviously I set the color tier for the fonts, and it's kind of a nice little feature within WhereScape is that you can actually color the objects so that you can just at a glance see which medallion they belong to. So if we take that same pivoted view, if I go back here to this, you see I've got bronze medallion to the bronze schema, silver medallion to silver schema, etc. They happen to match in this case. So if we take that same top-down view we saw earlier, that means I've got a demo catalog, and then I have a bronze, silver, and gold schema, possibly a sandbox. I didn't set that up. But then again, let me go back to this other screen. You can see in here, I also have a stage, target, an EDW, a business vault. Those might be going to the same schemas. They may be going to different schemas. I can set as many targets as I want to within the tool set. Okay. WhereScape also provides automated tracking, the data lineage here. This can be, you can see multiple sources that are ending up to be ingested into Databricks, be staged up, and then pushed directly, in this case, into a fact table. We would obviously have a data vault in between here, so we can get that enterprise integration and history tracking. So let's go through. I'm going to kind of skip through this. This is adopted from an actual presentation I created as a customer to sell my executives on purchasing WhereScape and utilizing Data Vault 2.0 as a methodology. I'm not going to go through all this for a lot. This was kind of specific to this particular case, but you've seen these BI maturity models before and where you want to get to. There's a lot of different ones. Obviously, we can go through that. There's this chart as well, where you're going from basic up to strategic. We all want to get there, and really, realistically, you're not going to ever get there when you're building things by hand. And really, we need to talk about data automation, and then also, obviously, the platform and the methodology. All those things come together, and you really need to have that plan if you really want to move your whole organization forward to that strategic level. Again, it is extremely rare for you to ever get there if you're going to try to do that by hand. So a lot of times you're going to get this question like, well, I was already sold this, where is my value? So let's talk about implementing WhereScape with this, including Data Vault methodology and on top of Databricks. So the wrong approach, let's talk about that first. So what is the, I've got shotgun kind of in gray in the upper left. Really, this is the approach that companies are still taking all the time today, is they're taking this individual pipeline approach to building their data warehouses and providing data to the business. There is a business request. So how do I make that data available? Somebody comes and says, I need a report, and I need it to be by X and Y and Z. I need X, Y, and Z metrics by facility and payer type. And so that request comes in, and somebody goes and builds that pipeline. And then another request comes in with a slightly different request, and another pipeline gets built, and then another pipeline. And as you can see, that continues to build until you finally end up with essentially a just big mess of pipelines. And that really looks like a Coogee sweater from the Cosby Show. Realistically, if you look at this sweater and you need to go make a change to any of the curvy lines on here, now you got to go find where all those curvy lines are and make that change. Or let's go look at all the blue threads. We need to go make the change to blue. And this is a real world scenario. Before I even used WhereScape, I was at a company with over 400 crystal reports, and uh, there was at least 4 to 5 different definitions of revenue, and they were over $100,000 off from each other. And that's what you end up with when you start building pipelines individually by business unit request. So are there plans and standards? Of course, we all know that. We'll go through here, and again, this is an old slide, so um, it's nice to the fathers of data warehousing, but we've got, Bill Inman here, younger picture there, DW 2.0, Corporate Information Factory. We've got Kimball, Star Schema, Enterprise Service Bus, and then, of course, we have Dan with Data Vault 2.0. So you can see here, obviously, a younger picture as well for Dan. So you're welcome, everybody out there. And what does that look like? So this is an old diagram. We won't spend a lot of time on this. Obviously, you guys are aware. You can look up Data Vault 2.0 and see some newer diagrams here. This is kind of a standard. I mean, obviously, we have lots of different standards out there and architectures, and you can get them also from all your favorite vendor, whether you're talking about Databricks or any of the others out there. They also provide a lot of architecture diagrams. Sometimes it's a big splattering of different logos and names and everything. But in the end, the nice thing I like about this diagram is it's keeping to some very across the board standardized names for explaining this structure. So how long is this going to take? Obviously, as you build pipelines, one of the things that comes up is, oh, it's easy to go build a single pipeline. So I've got a timeline, let's go build that thing. Remember that you don't need to build the entire Data Vault 2.0 infrastructure in one go. You can take it piece by piece. And WhereScape allows you to do that as well. We don't want to boil the ocean. We want to leverage data warehouse automation and make that a very quick process. So I'm going to kind of skip through this for the sake of time here so we can make sure we have questions. This is a real world example for myself doing a POC. There was a process that had taken 6 months and they weren't done. I actually brought in WhereScape, did it within 3 days, and it was completely documented with a website documented and published. And it just ridiculously increased the process and also increased that trust with the business, the ability to sit down with the business in front of the tool set and actually build out those items. So instead of your business thinking you should be your thief by spending all this money with tons of consultants and engineers building these processes out, and they want to send you off to the slammer, it really does improve your business partnership and that engagement with them, because you can sit with them, listen to their feedback, and make the changes real time and actually publish them to the dev environment. You can use automation to deploy that to QA and actually get some results in front of them very quickly. Realistically, honestly, these were my numbers. WhereScape doesn't publish these numbers. I saw a 35-to-1 improvement based off of the numbers we were running, and including maintenance and support, the continued refactoring, it really got up to 50-to-1. Now, again, nobody's going to publish that because that seems so aggressive, but that was a real world number that we came up with within our organization. What's the cost? Obviously, that's a calculation here that changes over time, but if we take a look at your FTE cost, average of 125K, it may be a lot more than that. But when you consider, salary, benefits, vacation time, PTO, if we take a look at, I took a minimum, I walked it back from the 50-to-1 and 35-to-1 and just say, let's say it's an 8x improvement. Then looking at annual subscription licensing, if we look at that 125K cost times the FTEs we're not going to have to hire, that's $1 million a year cost. Now, here's the other thing about using data warehouse automation. It is improving the efficiency of the people that are already there. You're not hiring and onboarding and waiting for people to become more efficient. So let's move forward a little bit faster here. With this slide here, just to remind you that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So really that's what we're trying to get to, is get data and get that in front of our executives versus conjecture. So, and this question comes up a lot. I've actually had real world scenarios with this where business is asking, can I just throw more people at this? And you can, but it's actually going to end up being taking longer because I'm going to have to train them, answer their questions, and continue to try to move the project forward. And it actually ends up taking longer. You know, and you can throw that back to the whole Mythical Man Month book if you've ever read that. So let's jump into a real world scenario. It looks like the screen sharing stopped. Let me reshare my screen. Okay, so let's see here. Should be screen free. Let me check that again. Screen 3. Okay, so you should see, yep, okay, WhereScape 3D. All right, so let's talk through this real quickly at a high level on Databricks. So again, we're working in a Databricks environment here. Let me pull up WhereScape Red as well. So again, these two tools work tightly integrated together. On the WhereScape 3D side, let's take a look at some of this information here. So we have WhereScape 3D, and we have some sources we've pulled together here and integrated those into this model. Again, we're from a Data Vault perspective, we want to model this for the business. This is a healthcare example here. And we've actually taken and modeled this together and created the enterprise or the business view of what a patient is. And the beautiful thing with this modeling tool is it's allowing you to sit down with the business and say, hey, is this what a patient is? Is this the right business key, the natural key? How do you refer to a patient? How do you refer to an encounter, medication, observation, etc., procedures, and be able to model that and have that interactive discussion with the business so that we're not sending Excel spreadsheets back and forth. And all of this was actually discovered from these source connections. So we actually very simply went through and modeled those in, discovered it. I'm not going to go through for the sake of time going through that process, but essentially you just say, hey, add a source. It's going to read that from that source system and pull that in along with all the documentation. And you can see in this particular case, I've got two different sources feeding the patient ID and in this case, last name. Now you may have multiple, most of our customers end up with dozens of sources feeding this one integrated model. And then WhereScape takes care of, after you've done this modeling, actually generating your Data Vault 2.0 physical structure for you to review. And what that looks like here, I'll go ahead and display that with a few clicks here. By clicking Generate Data Vault, it runs through model automation and generates your Data Vault structure. And you can see here it's adding, zoom in a little bit, where you can see your hash key definitions, what your data types are, and these are all configurable for your organization. Customers a lot of times will change what the names should be, what the naming patterns are, what the data types for hash keys, the hashing algorithms, all those things are configurable very easily. So they review this Data Vault pattern here, and then we generate the Data Vault, or I'm sorry, the ingestion. So we've looked at the raw vault, this silver layer. Once we've figured out what that silver layer should look like, we will generate the landing. So it generates the ingestion tables for Databricks and that layer for you. And so if I go and actually we'll run through one example here. I'm going to take this example I'm on. I'm going to click the create load and stage. And I'll go into this Databricks model here and go to 240731.2. So again, these model conversion rules, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is a lot of magic behind the scenes that you can, out of the box, it does everything for you. But if you want to configure them, these automation rules are all configurable. It tells you everything that it's doing. and then produces the final output for you with those tables and structures as you want. So again, if there's different naming patterns, naming standards, those can all be implemented within the tool set, as well as validation. There's sample validation scripts that WhereScape produces. That's a pretty cool tool, is it lets you actually validate across the entire model all at once, and check for whatever your standards are and make sure those have been met. So you can see this entire raw vault silver layer has been created. And then we have our bronze objects as well. And WhereScape's actually put those into separate groups here. So I can actually display just the bronze layer. I can display just the silver layer, for example. And that includes the raw vault. And in this case, I chose to include my stage tables as that silver layer. And then if I look what those logical targets are being set to in here, if I go to my model and look at the targets, I can see that it's actually organized. I have lots of logical targets, but I also have those organized into the silver, and in this case, bronze. I don't have any gold layer objects in here, but my table's been organized into silver and bronze targets, which when I deploy to WhereScape Red, as I showed you earlier, it's going to physically create those in those targets in Databricks. So again, if I go down to, for instance, my raw mart that I've produced here, I can look in here in this particular model, and I've produced a current raw mart star and a historical raw mart. So really type 1 and type 2 stars. And I can look at those from those independent information marts here. I can also look at the gold layer altogether, which includes both of those current and historical stars together. When those get deployed, which is simply the process of taking that model and clicking export to Red, and it's a process that'll push it directly over to WhereScape Red, and WhereScape Red will take over at this point and actually build those objects in Databricks for you. So if I go to the Databricks connection here, again, as you saw that in a screenshot, but it's also always helpful. I like to show people real world setups here. You can see, in this case, I've swapped this to use a different schema in Databricks. So it's the demo catalog, load POC schema for my bronze layer. My silver layer is going into DB POC, and then my gold is going into the EDW POC schema. Again, you can configure this however you want. I also have some additional targets. And if you want, you could create some additional schemas. Let's say you wanted to expand the idea of medallions and have a brass. Maybe that's your actual ingestion layer. And you create that for your ingestion, and then your bronze is really your staging layer. And then maybe you create a platinum for some, other information marks. So you can kind of extend that medallion concept if you want even further, and just take advantage of Databricks, putting that into the proper locations in your data lake. So if we take a look at some of those objects here, if we take a look at a hub, we've got these hubs. You can see they're in a silver color because I set that for that medallion. And we can also take a look at those structures that it builds. This is standard WhereScape things that is built over time. You can see the scripts here. WhereScape builds that code for you automatically during deployment. This isn't something you have to write by hand. All the code, and then WhereScape is pushing that to Databricks via SQL here. So using Python scripts and pushing that over. So let's, a question came in here around what version of WhereScape supports Databricks. You can see here, I'm running on WhereScape Red 10. And so WhereScape Red 10 is required for the Databricks enablement pack. So you would want to upgrade to WhereScape Red 10. And then you also get some other advantages as well using the Oscabon scheduler, which includes, let's see, I can just pull that up real quick as an example. And I don't know if I have any running at the moment, but we'll get that kicked up here, and you can see you also have that interface and web APIs to be able to control those dialogues. So while that runs here, let me, oh, and another question here real quick before I run into some other slides. How does the combination of Data Vault methodology and Databricks enhance the data warehousing capabilities? So Data Vault, again, as a methodology, it sits above, and Dan and Cindy have always mentioned that Data Vault is not specific to any particular platform. You may have read the book with the flaming car on it, and that was done using SQL Server as examples, which was great to try to help give people an example of how to use Data Vault 2.0, because you need some real world meat to what you're doing. But Data Vault 2.0 was never meant to be specifically to an RDBMS. Sits above whether you're on a lakehouse, whether you're using Databricks or any other platform. It's really people, process, and technology, and that methodology and the concepts around also the actual physical structures of hubs, links, and satellites works across all the platforms. It's a standard, and it takes away a lot of that decision point. It brings all your developers onto the same set of standards. There's not any question about what's being built. If you have a more casual approach to it, especially even with like star schemas, there's a lot of different flavors and ways of doing things. Whereas Data Vault gives you that standard. Of course, there's still some art to it, but the standards really put everybody on the same page. You can look at the standards and build the same thing regardless of the platform that you're on. So it really, across the board, Data Vault gives you that particular operating process. And again, if you're following Data Vault 2.0, you have a lot of additional things around your process and the people organization of your people and those flows. And again, WhereScape supports that across the board with how you use the tools. And I'll give you some real world examples here and some slides in a few minutes here. But just to show you some of these flows here, if we look at this Expo project and you can see all these processes involved here in the flow. We can look at any of the executions that have happened and then flow triggers, etc. So you've got your whole Oscabon scheduler here. And then executors, I think I only have one on here, but you can, there's two executors here. You can, and these are running on Windows, but you can have as many as you want running Linux. Some customers have them spinning up and down in containers, Linux containers, to scale out their processing. And there's no licensing from WhereScape on that. You can run as many executors as you want in the across your Oscabon instances. So let's jump back into some slides here. Let's okay. So here's Torgal, chief architect, and just as far as the real world, you've got me as a former customer. We have lots of customers that have really been able to take advantage of WhereScape. And one of the other great things that the tool does, as you saw, as I showed you some things within the tool and the documentation it provides, is that transparency to your executive team about what you've built. And that's really huge. It really gives your team a lot of trust to the executive team and your business units when you can produce the documentation and show everything that's built, the metrics and the attributes that you're providing to them. So let's talk about some multiple dev swim lanes with WhereScape. Again, part of that people and process. You can see that there on the slide, people and process within those pillars of Data Vault 2.0. There's a lot of different options. WhereScape supports so many different flow paths that you can use. So regardless of how you organize your people and the process, WhereScape's going to support that through the organization of those repositories and the DevOps processes. So again, WhereScape automates the deployment process, and you can use Azure DevOps, Jenkins, or anything else to do that flow path between these lines you see here on the slides. So you can have one instance of WhereScape 3D. A lot of customers do this. They have multiple teams working in 3D, branching and merging the various versions of the models and different systems, different source systems they're bringing in, maybe through acquisitions or simply working through change requests and JIRAs within WhereScape 3D and pushing those to multiple development swim lanes and then bringing those into a dev integrations environment and then to QA and to production. So another option is you may have multiple QA swim lanes as well. So multiple dev swim lanes, maybe those are rotating through by release cycle or simply by teams, and then integrating those into dev integrations environment, and then possibly sending those to their separate QA environments to match the dev environments, and then finally into production. And another one is where you've got multiple branches from 3D, from the model automation side, feeding different team dev branches, and then bringing that through as well. And then also, if you want to go full data mesh, you may have completely separate 3D environments where different teams are pulling in, maybe it's geographically dispersed and you're doing your data mesh, different teams across the world, pulling in different sources, feeding into their own WhereScape Red environments, and feeding them to their own QA environments, filing to their, maybe you have separate production or a unified production, and then possibly, optionally, a dev integration environment across those as well. So a lot of options there, and you can even do more than that. And I didn't really cover separate integrate or separate environments as far as showing the different ways you can organize your dev, QA, and production. But essentially, with WhereScape Red 10, you only need to have the developer tools on developer machines for WhereScape 3D and Red. And then after that, it's all it can be Azkaban running on Linux downstream with those Postgres repository databases for the other environments. So realistically, downstream here, you don't need Windows involved any longer at all. So really great enhancement with WhereScape Red 10 is removing that Windows dependency for any of the downstream environments. So feel free, you guys, if you have any additional questions that you want to drop in to the chat, feel free to go ahead and do that. And let's see if we have any other questions here. Any challenges encountered when implementing Data Vault with Databricks, and how can WhereScape's automation tools help overcome them? Again, this comes back to really that pipeline. If I go back to that slide, I was showing you about really this. Let me pop to this particular slide here. Back to that sweater that I was showing you guys. So again, here, it really is the problem and pattern that I see a lot, regardless of whether you're using Databricks or any other platform, is that teams continue to try to use pipeline tools and build these pipelines. Some of them are just fancier versions, newer versions of SQL Server integration services or any of these other pipeline tools. Sure, they, choose your flavor. They all kind of accomplish the same thing, these pipeline tools, whether they're delivered as a SaaS tool or on-prem or some sort of hybrid. All these pipeline tools, they are giving you in the end this Kuji sweater approach where it's very difficult to go through and unwind where these metrics were produced. And that's true, even from a Data Vault perspective. Data Vault, the intent, if you don't organize your people, process, and technologies as you should, then you're going to end up with the same item where people are building. I've seen Data Vault implementations where they have multiple versions of hubs of the same, multiple customer hubs, or multiple links that really should be the same thing, and you end up with different units of work. The grains aren't kept integrated together, and that really happens by individual building these things out by individual business unit request or executive request, etc. Or report-based or dashboard-based requests. A lot of different approaches like that when you don't go and take that overarching view that WhereScape gives you, especially using WhereScape 3D to be able to quickly discover and catalog those source systems so that you very quickly have a view of what that is. And WhereScape allows you to very easily integrate those and add dozens of sources into the same business model, and then have WhereScape handle producing that entire model and pushing it out. So regardless of platform, that's a common problem that I see over and over again. Real world examples of a successful project where this integration significantly improved data processing and analytics outcomes. Boy, there are a slew of them across the board, across industries and platforms. I'll give you as far as categorically at a high level, including Data Vault customers and WhereScape customers. One is migration. So customers that have migrated from an on-premise warehouse platform to a cloud-based platform. WhereScape, I was showing you with the tool earlier, those three sources in 3D, the fact of the matter is if you have an existing warehouse in some particular platform, let's just say SQL Server, and you need to push that into Databricks, WhereScape 3D, you can just quickly create an ODBC connection to that existing data warehouse. You can discover that existing warehouse. So it doesn't have to be a source system. It can be an existing data vault implementation on premise. You can discover that into WhereScape 3D. You can tell it what the targets are, which medallions you want those to go into with the automation, and then actually deploy all those objects into Databricks and have it generate those in your lakehouse very, very quickly. So it's, and that's regardless of platform, honestly. And then you can, from there, have WhereScape integrate that into your source systems to start building the pipelines for you automatically as well. So one of the questions that just came in, let's see, Ted, did you work with Databricks? It looks like to Databricks directly to build the integration layer on Databricks, or is it self-made code by WhereScape? So all the code that WhereScape is producing is WhereScape code. It generates that for you. So if we take a look here, and let me jump out of the presentation here and come back to the tool. All this code that is being produced by WhereScape. So it's all template-based, which is wonderful because you can actually control that. If we take a look at templates here, this set of Databricks templates are producing all of the code, the DDL for tables and views, and you can choose to tweak those as necessary, as well as these scripts are producing the actual SQL that's being generated. So let's give you a for example. If I pull up this hub for medication, and I'm going to go to here just so you can see the code it generates. I'm going to derive the DDL here. That's going to hit the template in WhereScape and produce this DDL for you. You can see it's adding comments. You can also tweak the DDL to add Unity catalog statements at the end as well if you need to add some security statements that you want to add to those tables directly. Typically, you're going to handle that really at the Unity catalog level on your schemas and your catalogs, but you can add it at a table level or column level as well. And then the code that's being generated. So if we take a look here at this code, you can see it's using this template down here. So if I click regenerate, it just regenerated that script on the fly. And now if I pull this back up and click edit, this entire script, this entire Python script, including the SQL that's being pushed to Databricks, is written by WhereScape. The Python really is the control and logging. It's handling which job is running this and task, which time, any error handling. It's passing in your Databricks host and paths, which containers, which medallions these are living in. So really the catalog and schema. And then logging all of those, how many rows were updated or inserted, and logging that into the WhereScape metadata so you have that for your data quality, your data tracking over time. Good question. So back to what I was talking about with the real world examples, a lot of customers that have used the tool to migrate from on-premise to the cloud. A lot of customers that have I've implemented Data Vault 2.0 on just about every platform. I guess I won't say, I don't think I've done Google Cloud. WhereScape supports Google Cloud, but I haven't had a Google Cloud customer yet as a target. But all of those are absolutely, and saying that for some reason triggered my phone to start listening to me. So thanks, Google. Yeah, again, WhereScape really enables you to be efficient across all those platforms. Yeah, so one of the other questions before version 10, we use Pebble. To use Databricks, we need to understand Python. You don't need to understand, so the templates are still using Pebble, and they're producing Python as the output script. So let's look at a simple, this is a very simple Pebble script. This is, again, Pebble is on GitHub. You can go look at this, very open. It's very Java-based. It's all documented, and WhereScape provides additional enhancements and documentation to the Pebble language. So I won't go through all of this, but it's going through and reading. whether this Databricks table is partitioned by something, clustered by which buckets, etc. So it has all this intelligence in it to figure out, Databricks mount points, etc. And it produces the DDL based off of all the WhereScape metadata. And that output, in this case for a table, is just SQL. It's issuing a SQL DDL statement to Databricks. In the case of the actual scripts that are processing the data, that's DML down here. And if we take a look at that, its output is Python. You don't need to understand Python because WhereScape is going to produce that for you. But the cool thing is it'll teach you Python if you don't know it. You can read the scripts that WhereScape produces to understand how to use Python well, very well-formed Python with all the functions and macros, etc. Does WhereScape make use of modern features like Databricks Delta Live tables? You can incorporate Delta Live. WhereScape's not producing those, but we are looking at actually adding tweaks to the templates to produce those automatically. But it is aware of those. Actually, come to think of that, I say that, but I think there is, actually, it is right here. That's already in there. I apologize. There is a Delta Live piece right here. So it's checking to see, should this be an external, temporary, or live table? And it will tweak the DDL to produce that live table for you. So yes, the answer is yes. It's already supporting live tables. Let's see. What else? So one of the questions, I don't have the console on here at the moment for logging into Databricks, but the question was, can I show what the deployed data model looks like in Databricks itself? I don't have that console able to be pulled up on this particular VM, but essentially what you're going to see in Databricks, you're going to see the SQL history being executed. And what you're going to actually see is this piece of the statement that is being issued against Databricks. So we are connecting and issuing those SQLs. We're taking care of it all that way. And you can actually see that in the SQL history that's executing within Databricks. You can also see, obviously, all the tables in Databricks via the console inside your schemas, inside those catalogs, obviously all being managed through Unity Catalog as you see fit. And that looks like we're pretty much at time. And that, I think, looks like finishes up most of the questions. We have few more questions. We'll definitely send out the presentation, and anything else, feel free. You guys can hit datavaultshop.com or email me directly at kevin@datavaultshop.com. Happy to answer any additional questions or help you guys out in your processes. And I hope that this presentation was helpful and clear for you guys. And helps you move forward. Have a wonderful day.